And on the back of everything that has happened in the last few weeks concerning sexual harassment, we're crossing over to the University of Ghana, where there's a seminar series going on sexual harassment, a bitter pill to swallow. So that's what we're doing next. We're crossing over to University of Ghana to pick that.
The student and the lecturer, like, what can a medical student give, blah, blah. But the point is, there are people who are...
So you see, the boys who think sexual harassment is a girl's issue, you can just feel because it's the toxic environment.
Yeah.
You can just feel because, and your girlfriend will pass and you will feel.
Yes. So these things have been happening, but I know that sometimes it's difficult to talk about, but once one person shares their story, because I was surprised, the moment I shared my story on the platform, several other doctors shared their stories. Several others shared their stories. So we are talking about medical schools, and not all of us. Some were in Kumasi. I was in Lagos. Some who were in Kumasi shared their story. Those of us who were in Kolebu shared our story. This is just the medical school. You can imagine the bigger university. So please, and the surprising thing is you realize that without me naming when the person sidebarred and named the person, it was the same person. So later on, I got to know that people actually knew that this man was doing that. And I got livid. So I was like, what did the school do about it? What did the hospital authority do about it? Because he was a big doctor, because he was in a privileged position, nothing could be done about it. And what if the person who is doing the harassing or the inappropriate conduct is the topmost? So imagine you need accommodation, office space. You're talking to someone in power to be able to get that. So this was how many years ago? 2002 or 3. I had been a doctor from 94. Talking to someone who was in a position to give me office space, and the person says, "Don't worry, Amma." Can I please demonstrate with Jemima?
Yes.
Oh,
not Prof.
But says, "Oh, don't worry, Amma. We'll get you a place." I mean, that day that I did not slap the person, I was like, God, I didn't know I had that much self-control. I was livid. I just went home, told my husband, I was like, how, I mean, it's like, you know, but then he understood me, but in another setting, I was sharing it and someone said, oh, but he was just comforting. I was like, what? You see, so this is the toxic environment. The fact that some people didn't even get why I was so upset about a superior in a position to give me space or something to work, doing that, you think he's encouraging me or comforting me. You encourage with words. Yeah. I'm a psychologist. That's my trade.
Yeah. Dr. ABC would like to
what my colleague Ahmad did say does not mean that we are talking about higher education institutions. Sexual harassment and misconduct is pervasive.
Yeah, that's true.
Wherever there is power play, wherever someone has more power than you, influence than you, sexual harassment and misconduct may be present. Let us not just imagine the university communities. Let me hasten to say, in the university communities, we have structures. We all applied, went through the process, did teaching demonstration, went through series of committee, board discussions, before finally a decision was made to hire someone. You go through the same process in the reverse, if indeed there is a violation of any of these policies. But let's look at the corporate environment. I'm a business psychologist, and I just cited examples of how innocent young ones who go for internships. In my industrial psychology class, I asked them the very moment these stories were coming out in class, and some of our students said, even say internships, we are suffering. Now, national service persons are suffering. University of Ghana, we have. How many government agencies have strong anti-sexual harassment and misconduct policies with the characteristics of the things I read out? How many political offices do we have these things in the various offices which we think they should be taking the lead for all of us to follow. It's pervasive. We want to look at it from that end. In churches, these challenges can happen because there is power play. Exactly. Someone must decide who goes and serve in a rich community or a rich circuit, who goes to serve in a poor circuit, giving the fringe benefits that are not documented. So let us not just narrow the discussion to the academic circles. We are talking generally. In politics, in media. I did a 4-year research in the media industry. And this form of harassment and misconduct is happening in the media industry. You want to be a news anchor. That is what everyone wants to be. Who wants to be in stocks, even though I'm a journalist? And once again, there's power play. If you don't take care, you become a prey to a predator. Because you want to appear 6 o'clock news for the entire Ghanaians to see you. And that could be a challenge. You want to get retention. That could be another challenge. Come to the entertainment section. Lumba said it many years ago when he wanted to sing his first song. It was a challenge even getting a producer. He is a male. How much more today? You have a nice voice, a young, beautiful lady. You want to actually get your talent rolling. You may go through some of these challenges. So let's open the discussion. Let's open our minds to whatever we are discussing here. We shouldn't only see it as a higher education problem. It's a macro problem, and it's becoming a global menace. And that is how we need to look at it.
Okay, so yeah, on that note, I think, yeah, you're right. It's more than just in academia. It's completely pervasive throughout our society. I've said before that it's reached epidemic levels and it needs to be dealt with, but how are we going to deal with it? That's my key, because too many times I have women come to my office or come and see me in tears, distraught, telling me how, on occasions it's been my own colleague, is intimidating them. Yes, intimidating. I mean, I've said before where I had an incident where there was a particular student of mine, as distraught, being intimidated, victimized, sexually harassed by a colleague lecturer. So I put my neck out. I said, look, I will walk you through it. I will hold your hand. Indeed, you know, I'm not saying I would have been sacked, but I'm actually putting my job on the line because these are my colleagues. I was prepared to do it. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, my student decided against it. And yeah, I was disappointed, I was frustrated, at a point I was angry, but I understood her. Now that's the sad part for me. I understood her because she explained to me that she did not think it was worth sacrificing her future and her career to report this. And what she said to me again was, she said, Madam, yeah, I know you'll be fair to me, but the rest of the people that are on the panel, can you vouch?
And you couldn't?
It was out of my control. I couldn't. So, yes, it is a problem. It's a problem throughout our society. But what are we doing about it? We all know people who behave in this manner. Do we call them out? Do we encourage people to report? I mean, I'm asking myself also. We have these rules and regulations in place, even in the Ghana labor law. I think it's section 175, talks about sexual harassment. Do we use it? You know, so if there were more people that were penalized for these kinds of issues, these predators that we all know, yeah, and they know themselves even. That's why they're the ones shouting and screaming and crying more than anybody else, because they know themselves. But what are we doing about it? You know, when people make these kind of lewd comments, suggestions, it might not even be directed at you. Yeah. You might be there when these things are being said. And because of our cultural context, especially when it's a superior and a subordinate. Maybe one of your colleagues might make some kind of suggestive remarks against a subordinate in your presence. What do? Do you laugh along? Do you say, oh, it was just a joke, they're complimenting you? Or do you call them out? Do you say, well, actually, that's really inappropriate. Why are you talking like that? Yeah, you will be called all kind of names. Me, I'm known as Margaret Thatcher. I own it and I love it, but I will call you out. Because that's the kind of way we can get rid of this. When it's not the norm to be able to comment on somebody's chest or somebody's buttocks or somebody's anything, yeah? Where, oh, you look nice is sufficient. Where, oh, that dress suits you is all right. Not where you have to go and describe the figure 8 and all that's pumping out and bulging out. When that becomes abhorrent to us, then I think we'll go some way. Because, yeah, you can go through the law way, the legislative, yeah? But it's more an attitudinal thing. The way we see people's bodies, especially the bodies of women, the way we think it's okay to objectify women's bodies because, after all, isn't that why you dress nice? After all, that's what you live for. We need to have a mind shift to find those things unacceptable. We can appreciate the beauty of creation, but appreciate it. We do not have to let it lead us to lustful thoughts and other kinds of temptations.
Did you all hear the news of the gentleman, and I use gentleman rightly, who was going to give an award to a female journalist and decided to start by commenting on her buttocks?
May I? Okay, so let me go back to a comment by my good sister, or niece actually. He calls me uncle, Jemima. So, Dr. Nuno, I think in this area, you know, we should tread a bit, I won't say cautiously, but we shouldn't really rule out things so easily. So we can say for sure that sexual harassment is never a defense or an excuse for misconduct. So you cannot say, well, because I was sexually harassed or felt sexually harassed by student A, I did conduct B, right? So it is not a defense, nor is it an excuse for your own misconduct. However, I think we should not say that a particular kind of conduct can never be sexual harassment. Why do I say that? Because a lot of this is actually context specific. So this issue comes up a lot when it comes to dressing. And the reason why I hesitate to say dressing can never constitute sexual harassment is that we have to know the factual circumstance, right? So a student comes to class, and we are talking mostly hostile environment sexual harassment, right? So let's say a bunch of boys, right, having boys conversation in class. It's not the teacher, but each time these guys meet, they're talking about explicit sexual stuff. They're not targeting any particular woman or girl in class, but it does create an environment where the women in the class might feel very uncomfortable. Each time they come to class, these guys, this is the only thing they talk about, right? Now, I think similarly, you could find situations where a particular form of costume. I mean, I think Jemima went to the extreme when she says even nakedness. Absolutely, you cannot say that even nakedness cannot constitute sexual harassment. So if a student comes to class, she positions herself a particular part of the classroom, a lecturer
You call it out.
That's right. You call it out because it's inappropriate, right? And sexual harassment has a lot to do also with things that are inappropriate, right? It's not just, so it doesn't give the teacher an excuse to carry on to do some other stuff and say, oh, she provoked me and therefore I went ahead and had this affair with her or propositioned her or made advances. That is where we draw the line. Sexual harassment is never a defense or an excuse. But that behavior could constitute sexual harassment if she positions herself in a way where it's clear it's not even wearing panties, for example, right? So you sit in a place where you are visible to the Prophet. Every time he comes to class, this is what you do to him, right? You could create a hostile sexual environment for him, right? It is not entirely subjective all the time. There are objective standards to measure these things, reasonable person standards and the like. But I'm saying that I will not rule out the possibility that in certain circumstances, the way you carry yourself, how you costume yourself, how you position yourself, what you do with your body in the presence of a certain relationship could actually create a hostile sexual environment, right? So I think, but where we absolutely must draw the line is that it is never an excuse or a defense or justification for any other thing you may then go on to do. And so you can't say, well, the committee calls you and says, okay, so an allegation has been brought against you, complaint has been brought, and you're saying, well, listen to my side of the story. This is what happens. This student, I can call all the students in the class, they'll testify to this. She's always sitting here, no, that cannot excuse your behavior, right? So what you should then do is what Dr. Nunu suggests. If it's inappropriate and it is creating a hostile sexual environment for you in that context, you call her out and say this is not behavior acceptable.
You can call a student to walk out of your class to go. So if the hostile environment is created, but you are the person in authority.
But you can report too, actually.
Exactly.
You're allowed to report. Oh, absolutely.
Because if a student walks into your office all the time,
absolutely,
you have to wrap their hands around you and
you're allowed to report.
This is where we can report. But let's look at it even from domestic violence perspective. Men are being domestically violated against. But how many men go to Dovsu police station and say, my wife beat me? You see how we are all laughing? You see, the law is for us as well. So that is where cultural elements also comes in. If we are saying, that's why we are saying harassment is not just one particular gender specific.
No,
exactly. It's of the two divide. That is very true. But how many men will report? It's similar to this domestic violence I'm talking about. Gradually, some are gathering the momentum, the boldness to do so.
The University of Ghana on record have said that in the last year, they dealt with only sexual harassment
cases.
I'm sure, I don't want to be School of Pharmacy. But in the College of Health Sciences alone, there will be more than 6 for the whole university. So it's difficult for people to report alone. I just don't think we should make it a woman against men.
Exactly. So let's move on to what my sister Jemima said. How do you help so that women will report? How do we help so that men will also report? I will look at it from a business psychological perspective. One, when it comes to orientation and training, in most cases, issues to do with harassment, we predominantly take a legal approach to training on sexual harassment and misconduct. University of Ghana could be a fine example. When I was coming in, it was a lawyer who came to do the ethics and harassment-related issues. So I will understand the legal perspective to this particular matter. We need to be all-encompassing when it comes to orientation and training about sexual harassment and misconduct. Because as a psychologist, the implications of someone getting harassed go beyond today. Anxiety, the fears, performance, and what have you. These are psychological related effect. And so in terms of training, we need to look at how we orient people about sexual harassment. 2, organizational design, how we design our officers. It also promotes people with a wrong mindset who are bent on towing that particular line. Some organizations are thinking of open spaces, office setting, And if you go to China, they were having challenges when it comes to sexual harassment in the early 2000s. Open office. So you enter, administrator, supervisor, we are all there. It helps to some extent. So in terms of organizational design, then we need to also look at initiatives that we take when it comes to trying to assign people. In China, 2003, Sichuan province, male officials were barred from taking female assistants because 87% of a chance women were complaining of getting harassed every single moment. For me, that may not be the best approach. At all. We need to actually tackle the problem looking at it from an attitudinal perspective. We must make reporting easily accessible to everyone. We need to have confidence in the structures that we do have. If we don't, it will be very difficult.
I will quickly come to the audience to give questions, but I don't know if it's the school administrator or the dean, they are not here, anybody. Who do you report to if a highly respected person, example, your dean or your faculty officer is harassing you sexually? So Paul would send the mic to one person, one senior member, and then a few students.
In the meantime, I can share what happens in UHAS because it's also an academic institution, and our policy is just like that of legal. Wait. I mean, I've seen it too. But if a very senior person is reporting, everybody has a direct report. So the school officer would report to the registrar. So if the school officer is, you can report to the dean or you can report to the registrar. That is the hierarchy in the school officers are under the registry. If your dean is reporting, the head of academic in most universities is the Pro-VC. Let's assume the Pro-VC is the one harassing you, the VC. If the VC is harassing you, you have the council chair. I mean, so those structures, know the structures in the university. Most of the time, you can have one person you are comfortable with. It can be a lecturer. It can be someone in administration. The first point of call is to have a voice. Someone to listen to you, someone to give you the space to unburden you, to let you know that you are not at fault, you are not to be blamed. That is very, very important because sometimes the secondary trauma when people have gone through these things is even worse than the incident. You are belittled. You mean he just touched you like this, the example I gave, and you are up in arms about it. Say with the that really demeans everything you are going through. So your sense of safety and security when your personal space has been breached is a very important. So in as much as you want to know where to report, be also careful. Get that person. Most universities will have a counseling center, would have psychologists on call. Talk to them. Talk to someone you can trust. Get that space. That is very important. And then know that it's an uphill task. It is not easy, and that's the reason why most people don't want to. You look at the stress. I gave the example of a lawyer, a female one, being sexually harassed by her doctor. Told me, I said, I will walk you through this. She said, Amma, it's not worth it. Lecturers being harassed by colleagues. You ask them, it's like, I can handle him, I'll just ignore him. Because it is not easy. So when you are a student and you are going through this, you have to know that it's not going to be an easy thing. The committee will be there, you will be asked questions. Some of the questions that you are asked can really look as if you are being blamed for all of that. But it is also important that you learn to speak up. You never know, talking about it is going to help others. And the ultimate thing is the organization. Organization climate is the #1 determinant of whether sexual harassment occurs or not. If the organization comes out and says, we will not tolerate it, that's it. It won't happen.
Dr. Edwin, some few people are badging me that they want their questions to
Okay.
come. One senior member. Oh, senior members. Okay. Dorothy.
Okay, I'm not a senior member, I'm not a student. I am interested in the subject. Congratulations to you all. and thank you for making time. I have a number of issues on this, but I'll make it short as much as I can. My name is Diana Adiko. Good morning, I'm the That was from the early 2000s. I wanted to add one form of sexual harassment as we're experiencing it in the field. So you talked about quid pro quo and hostile environment. I think the issue about retaliation associated with sexual harassment is a big form, where because you have reported, or because you have not reported, because you've consented or you've not consented, whichever way, it's always a bad case. The perpetrator turns on you and begins to do things to make you very uncomfortable. It could manifest in a hostile environment, or it could manifest in so many other ways. But retaliation associated to sexual harassment is a big form, and I think it also captures the boyfriends of victims.
The one I talked about, exactly.
They know somebody who the lecturer likes. And so it's a web, and that's one catch. If you find yourself there, but you've not been directly harassed, or the harassment itself stopped, or a certain kind of treatment followed, is also an avenue for you to report and say, I think there's retaliation going on because of a sexual harassment, something. The issue of addressing, I think for the past 2 weeks, we've talked repeatedly about dressing and making men to harass. But what I think we should emphasize, and the panel said it, but just for sake of emphasis, is that if you feel the suggestive language from a female or a male, you feel the way they're presenting themselves, the way they flat themselves suggest or is making you uncomfortable, that in itself is sexual harassment. It is not an invitation to harass or rape. It is sexual harassment. You have the opportunity within the policy or the laws of our country to report and get support and not actually use it as an excuse. Exactly. It follows in the language. When men are being sexually harassed, they say they are getting scholarship. So it's an opportunity for them to take advantage of it. Accept that you're a victim. Accept that somebody is taking advantage of you and get help. So I'll kill this. Otherwise, don't go anywhere. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dorothy from the Department of Linguistics. So I think that many a times it's quite difficult for people to report this issue because if you go through the whole process, they would ask you, do you have evidence? Do you have any form of evidence? How many of us walk around with, cameras and so if somebody does this to you, you are going to report it. I remember in my secondary school there was an issue like that, right? They had to set somebody up like Ikimori did before they got the evidence. It was a setup. So many a times you don't even have the evidence to show that indeed I am being harassed. So it goes and goes and goes. Then at the end of the day, it becomes a police case. So why would you waste your time on this whole thing? So if we could, I don't know if a lawyer can help us here.
I think Angela can.
Okay, so because of time, I'll get you, when you are giving your conclusion remarks, you respond. Any students do have questions? Ask your questions. Your questions are there. Okay, just
please, we want you to address the questions.
Which questions?
No, the first one especially.
How do we make sure calls for justice don't affect women's career prospects?
Okay.
Since male bosses now tend to, that's very true. Say, I won't smile at you again. Don't come to my office. Like he said in China, you can't be my assistant. So what if men decide that the women should stay away, they also stay away?
All right. Thank you. My question is related to the dressing. Because I believe that men are always on heat.
Oh my God. Even dogs, animals are not always on heat. Where did you get that concept from? Is he a student or?
Okay. Most men are always on heat. Unless you're not a potent. Every man who's potent, what you see always influence you. And sometimes people say,
can we do anatomy here? Do you want me to take you to?
It's good that.
Yeah, you don't have the mind to arise or say you look beautiful. But she walks to you and you can see two mountains on her chest. So that alone Well, I would like to speak to the psychologist because sometimes it's a personal feeling.
You're not able to get any documented evidence, but I would still say report anyway. If you look at a lot of these cases that are coming up in Ghana and elsewhere, yeah, the patterns are the same. They do A, B, C, D. Even the words that they use, the phrases, everything is so similar. So then you build a case. I'm not saying it's airtight, but at least it's there and it's documented. So that goes for any of the students as well. You know, if you've been through this, or indeed, if you are going through this, don't think because, you know, you've not got maybe some text messages or hard documented evidence that you cannot report in a way. You can. Also to the gentleman that said that men are on heat, okay? So, I mean, it's something that in my sexual harassment classes, it comes up a lot. That, you know, this is how men are wired, and this is how we behave. And I would argue that this is the way our society permits men to behave. That I'm not saying, I mean, human beings have sexual thoughts. It is normal and it is natural. That is how human beings are wired. Yes, men and women. But it's the acting out of those thoughts. It's the festering in our minds of those thoughts and acting out on them that I would say would come more from socialization and what we accept. So, I mean, indeed, the gentleman recognized that it was more of a psychological problem, which is very good. And it is for men who feel that they're always on heat to deal with that psychological problem and understand that it is their responsibility to deal with it and not anybody else's. Thank you.
Okay, I think so that we do not think that sexual harassment is this liberal or Western or some kind of feminist agenda that is being foisted on us here, you know, poor Africans. I think it's also important to reckon the costs to society at large of sexual harassment. The cost to the individual, of course, is real. I mean, there is psychological costs. It affects women's participation in the workforce, in the economy. It slows their career progression. It causes a lot of, you know, involuntary absenteeism from work. It affects their productivity, their morale. It violates the merit principle in a place like the university, which is supposed to adhere to meritocratic norms of promotion, progression, and the like. You know, so there are a whole host of costs that we bear. And in some societies, they actually compute the annual cost. I mean, the reason why, so in the US and other places, because there is liability, legal liability, and employers are slapped with huge awards, they know the monetary cost of these things, and they can calculate it.
And we've been watching the seminar series from the University of Ghana, where we've been talking about sexual harassment, a bitter pill to swallow. Now, there are two things that really stood out for me. The first is that it's a battle that women go through when they have to report sexual harassment. And sometimes having to defend it deters them from actually reporting it, also because of the stigmatization and the victimization. You're almost forced to wear a label of you've been sexually harassed and you have to defend it. So that's a tough thing that women have to face. Also, something that came up was the fact that if institutions would place a premium on policy and punishment, that may be a sufficient deterrent. I mean, if you knew that you were going to harass somebody and you would be punished, or you definitely would lose your job, perhaps you'll think twice about making lewd comments or about unwanted advances. But that's it for NewsDesk for today. Coming up next is Joy News Interactive with Mapitso Sabidi. If you'd like more news, please go to myjoyonline.com. Everything you need, you can find there. My name is Enimoa Enimado, and I wish you a very happy Thursday.